Alright, let's get into Spades. So, Spades, as we know, is the Kingdom of Power, which is their attribute. And their magic type is Time. Now, Spades is my lesser. It's not quite as, I don't know, as Hearts is. But I still am kind of working kinks out. But Spades plays a key part in the AU and the overarching story. So I think it's fun to get with them. And I think I'll start revealing a little bit more about the story as we go along. Diamonds is the main part of the AU. That's the central part, but Spades is a big part too. So, like I said, attributes, power, magic is time magic. We'll get more into that later. So, actually, you know what? We won't get into magic now. So, when I say that Spades has time magic, it's less of a traveling back and forward in time, and it's more of they can speed themselves up, slow others down, and recharge themselves faster. So, as a result of that magic, Spades has some of the longest working hours out of all the four kingdoms, and has some of the least amount of vacation days and things like that. But, I mean, when you can speed up your work and stuff like that, but it also means that they're the most technologically advanced of all the four kingdoms. Lots of magic tech going on. You'll see some things like prototypes for cars and things like that. Spades is an archipelago. You're going to see bridges and primitive vehicles going across those. They do a lot less with horseback. So, getting into the key players here, we have King Alfred, who's America, Queen Arthur, who is England, Jack Yao, who is China. Then we have the King's Ace, who is Andrew, Australia. And then we have the Queen's Ace, Eric, who is New Zealand. We have Mai, I make sure I get these names right. Mai, who's Vietnam, she is, what is she? She's one of the Jack's aces. Now, one thing about the Jack has a lot of aces. Jack Yao has a lot of aces, and there's a reason for that. But we also have the Court Magician. Arthur is the Court Magician. How we got that is a funny story. The Court Magician's apprentice is his retainer, basically. So Eric plays being the retainer and also being the Court Magician's apprentice. Kasim, who is Thailand, is the royal chef. We have May, who is Taiwan, who is another one of the Jack's aces. Did I mention that Kasim's also an ace? And then we have... What did I name him? I don't know. We're going to call him Li Zhao. Li Zhao, who's Hong Kong, who is also an ace. But there's a little something else about him. We'll get into that later. So, as I mentioned, Spades is an archipelago. It is a group of, I think, 7 small islands, all connected to each other by bridges. And the population tends to be, based on where you are in the Spadian caste system, Spadian society, you'll be located on one of those islands. Spades is the country with the most stringent and strict views of branding. Like, believing that power is absolute, and you'll be sorted into these caste systems at birth. So most likely, if you're born into a family, they actually do use 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they do physically brand you. Aces are usually 10s or maybe 9s who are high ranking, while the 1s are like farmers and, they're pretty poor. So, like I said, only country that actually physically brands you. And there are a lot of societal barriers that stop you from raising up and making more money and moving to different islands. They like to pretend that they have the Hearts model. They like to pretend that if you work hard enough, you can make it in Spades, and you can, maybe you can be king one day. But there's a lot of barriers, and there's lots of bias, and lots of, Like I said, there's lots of systematic, classism going on. So, it's like, you have a 2 who is a farmer and says, oh, I want to start selling my goods. 3s are merchants, they live on the other island. Well, it's by design that the 1s and 2s live on the island that is furthest away from basically everything, and they're closest to the capital, but they're furthest away from the other islands and also other kingdoms. So it's going to be hard for a Spadian farmer to become a merchant. Then there's proper education on certain things. You need a certain level of education in order to be a merchant. Then you have to have the license, which also costs money. That's just little examples. And then it's the same kind of barriers for all the other islands for different groups. You tend to have 1s and 2s on one island, 3s and 4s on another, 5s and 6s, and so on and so forth. So maybe the islands aren't necessarily 7, and then you have like 10s and the 9s and up who live in the kingdom, in the castle. So yeah, there tends to be a lot of stringent rules. But Spades is also the smallest of the 4 kingdoms, like I said, being a bunch of islands. I mentioned the bridges, I mentioned where people are. Spades is about loyalty to the kingdom, and definitely the strictest about brands, like I said. There was a situation that involves our king, where his mother, Joan, decided that when she had Alfred, that he had a king's brand. Well, she decided she was going to try to flee or just to keep him. Well, they found out quickly, and basically they got him, and she was basically marked for death. Thankfully, she escaped, and she ended up in Diamonds and had another son. But we'll get more into that son and the whole thing, and more of Joan and when we get into Diamonds. But so that's how we got King Alfred. But yeah, it's basically absolute. If you have a king and you try to hide him here, you're going to be put to death. That's it, unless you can somehow escape. Other places, you hide a king, maybe there's jail time, maybe there's fines and things like that. Other places, they don't care. So there's no reason to hide. But here, oh no, don't mess with the system. So if I were to go back and get more into the magic, I know I'm rambling, but if we go back and get more into the magic, about speeding up and slowing down, there is magic to where you can skip forward in time, skip backward in time, and stop it altogether. But that's locked away. That is a very ancient thing that's locked away inside the royal family. And if anyone does it, skipping forward, skipping backward, stopping, you die. You trade your life for it. So no one does it. It's definitely not a thing. You will die. So if I were to go a little bit more into the story, now that we discussed the magic, now that we discussed the culture and how stringent it is, the anomaly here is, why does the Jack have so many aces? Why does Jack Yao have so many aces? Why are his whole family still there? Well, his family's not actually from Spades, much less this world. So, the thing about Yao is that Yao is actually a king of his own kingdom in a different dimension. Basically, what happened was, we're still working out the kinks, but basically, him and his family, the royal family, ended up falling into this world where they have to exist and make a life for themselves. The good thing about their magic, they know how to influence things. Yao definitely did make a potion that got him into good graces of King Alfred, but they were able to alter people's minds and kind of things, and to say like, we were always here, and yes, I've always had this many jacks. I mean this many aces, and made a concoction and gave it to the king, and now the king thinks that Yao is his very best friend. The queen is very, very suspicious of the Jack and his entire family of aces. Yao's whole thing is that he is learning as much as he can to make the gate to get back to the world. He's just trying to get out of here. And his desire just to get out, he doesn't really care. He basically agrees with whatever the king says. The king wants to do an experiment that will blow up half the country. He's like, oh yeah, do it. I'll put the money into it. Go for it. While the queen is like, no, that's stupid. Absolutely not. You'll blow up the entire northern island. What are you doing? But the Jack will just sit there. Yao will just say, yeah, it's fine. Do it. Yeah, what do you need? As long as you give me more of those runes and just allow access to the restricted section of the library, I'll do whatever you want. It's fine. In the meantime, Yao does definitely push for Spades sucks. Let's just be real. Spades sucks. And just in case he's unable to get back, he's like, okay, let me just marry you guys off as well. So that's how Japan got to hearts. I mean, Kiku got to hearts. Who else is elsewhere? That's how Kiku and Sakura got in hearts. So he's like, okay. He's like, he will legit just go, hey, look at his family member. Aren't they nice? Here they are. Take them. The only ones he can't do that with are Kasim and Mai because they're in love with each other. I mean, Thailand and Vietnam. They love each other, so therefore they pretty much stay. They put up with Spades' crap, and it's like, but it's okay, we love each other. It's like, why don't they just leave? Well, Spades does not really... There's circumstances, and Spades does not like immigration. It's going to say you're born in Spades, or you're in Spades, you stay in Spades. So that's Yao's whole thing. And his reaction to that really does show in how he treats King Alfred. Now, we discussed that he just kind of goes along with whatever crazy thing King Alfred wants to do. Mention that King Alfred is extremely ambitious. He loves to experiment. He loves to stuff. There's also often lots of explosions. He definitely works a lot. But with Yao, King Alfred's also sick. He does have a disease that does change how he acts. Some days he's his usual self. Some days he's a little possessive. He gets like possessive over not only his items, but sometimes with money or with the people he's around. He'll start hoarding things. He'll start lashing out. And we've noticed that his skin's getting a little rougher, scaly, if we might add. And because of this disease, Alfred also kind of believes that he's the one, he can be the hero of the world. He is the one that should unite all four of the kingdoms, and he should be the head of it. So that's kind of his deal, while Arthur is just like, no, trying to talk sense into him. Doesn't always work though. Spades is one of the kingdoms where the queen can veto, but the king can also overrule that veto, which happens more often than Arthur likes. To bounce back to the magic, now that we've kind of got why Yao's here and why everyone else is here, and we'll get more into them as well as we go to, probably when we get into diamonds, we'll get more into them. And we'll explain Alfred's sickness a little bit more. But bouncing back to their magic. So they're good at speeding up and slowing down. So they can slow down the enemies and speed themselves up and things like that. So because of the long work hours, they often have a thing about eating magical food. Magical food is basically the equivalent of fast food. It's not as nutritious, it doesn't necessarily taste the best, but goodness, it's something while you're working your 14, 13, 15, 17 hour shift. So they're probably the least healthy, and they have the lowest population of all. Let's see what else we got. So we went over how I got there. So to get into some fun stories, and we'll get into Alfred's sickness later. But we get into some fun story. Like one fun story is just like how Arthur became the court magician. So basically, Arthur is a noble, and he wanted to be the royal chef. He's like, I can cook, I can do this, I want to cook for the king, and so Alfred granted him an audience. So he was able to have his way with the kitchen and really try to show off his stuff. Granted, what he made ended up looking like some gray sludge, but hey, it was something. And he's just convinced that it's just the best thing ever. But the thing about it is, like, remember what I said about magical food? Arthur thinks it tastes fine. Arthur thinks it's just as nutritious. So while he's cooking, he is using magic to light everything on fire and like roast things and do all of that at the expense of any flavor, or it just tastes plastic. It tastes like chemical, honestly. That's what magical food tastes like. So he presents Alfred with the gray sludge. Andrew's like, absolutely not. What is happening? I'm not letting you eat that. And Alfred's just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's not poison, it's fine. Alfred also has a really weird way of talking. He's weird. He's very, very weird. But in terms of this world, but very eccentric. But he tries it. He's like, okay, dude, this doesn't taste that good, but your magic is amazing. So that's kind of how I ended up being court magician. It's like we found that he just basically found that Arthur is more skilled in magic than he is cooking. Arthur still tries to cook to this day. He's still learning, and he's getting better at it. It's just not the best thing. It's better to leave the cooking to Kasim. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've got on Spades. I'm trying to think, do I have anything else to say? Not really. We went over who's with who. I've gotten some stories about. I don't really have a lot of stories. Like I said, it's kind of not the most developed. So Australia, New Zealand, they don't have. I really don't know the characters that well, but they're fine. And then like we went over Mike and Kasim, May. Oh, South Korea's here too, by the way. I couldn't find a chibi of him. That's why he's not on the screen. Thank you. I remembered. South Korea's also here. He's also, like I said, one of the Jack's aces. Loves to annoy the crap out of Yao. Oh my gosh. Just poke, 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 poke. But outside of that, that's pretty much all I have. So next time, we're going to get into clubs. And I think we're getting more into territory where I can kind of talk a little bit more. So, I'd like to thank y'all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Do what you gotta do. Protect your peace. Love y'all. Bye.